Donald Trump is loudly anti-military. He was when he was their commander-in-chief, and he is now. This is from John's new book. Quote, two U.S. military leaders, Army Chief of Staff James McConville and Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy, had just issued a statement President Trump believed was insubordinate. And he wanted the aide, Johnny McEntee, who we just talked about, to let the Pentagon know the remark was entirely unacceptable. If it happened again, heads would roll. Quote, there is no role for the U.S. military in determining the outcome of an American election. That was the statement. After relaying Trump's disapproval of McConville and McCarthy's joint statement to Acting Defense Secretary Chris Miller, McEntee jotted down some updates for the president and White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. Chris Miller spoke to both of them and anticipates no more statements coming out, the note read. And in parentheses, if another happens, he will fire them. Hours after Miller got off the phone with McCarthy, Trump sent a tweet that changed the course of history. Quote, big protest in D.C. on January 6th, it read. Be there, will be wild. He'd have to rely on a ragtag group of supporters armed with flagpoles and rage, fueled by the lie that the presidential election had been stolen. The U.S. Army would have nothing to do with it. Doesn't that get right at his intent of what he wanted them to do?
Absolutely. So, by the way, this book is amazing, and you can see that note right here, which was torn up into pieces and then reconstructed by the archives. So you can actually see what it is that you referenced. I have always been fascinated by the fact that you had the Defense Department and Milley with a lot going on behind the scenes, pushing back, because you can't engage in a coup without military backing. And the fact that Kash Patel was there, a figure with no military expertise whatsoever, and was installed there, to me is always this unwritten story about what was happening. And my general experience when I was in the government is that the military is incredibly law-abiding, and really stands for the rule of law. And as much as we think of it as a military organization with a hierarchy, they are also trained that they do not violate the Constitution. And when there's an invalid order, they know that they cannot follow it because the Constitution comes first. So to me, this goes right to the heart of Donald Trump brushing up against one guardrail. But I have the same concern as you're outlining here, which is Donald Trump has now been in office. The sort of year or so that it took him to learn the levers of power, he knows. So I remember when he first started, a friend of mine at the department said, this is malevolence, but matched by incompetence. Mm-hmm. So they weren't really effective. The Muslim ban is a perfect example where it took them so many tries to get it, quote, right, meaning so it could pass muster. But I took your book as that is going to be a pale comparison to what would come in Trump 2.0.
I mean, it's astounding that the statement that got him so upset is saying that the U.S. Army has.
Let me read it again. This is what made him mad. Quote, there's no role for the U.S. military in determining the outcome of an American election.
That statement infuriated Donald Trump.
And if you do it again, you'll be fired. And that note gets ripped up into pieces so no one could find it.
David Jolly, I'm not saying Trump watches this program. I think he does catch some of Andrew Weissman's appearances based on today's social media activity. But he has heard this indictment of his competence because the same fella, John McEntee, who John was talking about, is making the plans to put this in motion in a second term. I know you and I talk about it a lot. John now has done the reporting and has the goods, and other outlets are reporting on this more and more. But it feels like we need a whole new frame in terms of not looking at these as gaffes, but these are sloppily communicated white paper plans.
Yeah, Nicole, and I think there's two sides of a very important coin. One is to demand loyalty and fealty to Donald Trump should he be reelected. And that is not unusual, but for the extent to which Donald Trump would demand fealty and loyalty. He would require that to be above loyalty and fealty to the Constitution. That itself is a danger. The other side of that coin, though, is what does he do to his critics? What does he do with his enemies list, which we know he would have and he would try to execute against? And I think that's where this conversation about use of the term vermin comes in. But I'm also taken by the verbiage ahead of that. His comment about vermin was he was going to root it out. Not that he was going to defeat it, not that he was going to expose it, but that he was going to root it out. And to me, it is very analogous to the pattern we've seen him take on immigration. If you want to look at examples, he called immigrants rapists and thugs and said just recently in the last few weeks that immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. At the same time, he's unveiling a policy where he says he's going to round them up in mass camps and have the greatest deportation we've had in almost 100 years in the United States. So if the language around immigrants then leads to this type of policy, what does it mean when he says we're going to root out the vermin, the Marxists, the communists? He's already told us one thing. He wants to ban those with pro-Palestinian viewpoints from colleges and universities in the United States. Now, whatever position you take on Israel and Hamas and the Palestinian people, the fact is we have a constitution that says you can take that view, whatever that view is. Donald Trump is saying, no, you can't. The root out the vermin, the verbiage there suggests that he is prepared to execute against his critics. That is a danger we should listen to. It certainly should inform our judgment, but we should be prepared for it, because I think this is more than just now thinking, okay, he'll have an enemies list and the IRS is going to go after them. The question is, does he use the Department of Justice, or does he try to turn to the military to suspend posse comitatus, which we know seems so far-fetched it couldn't happen? But who does he try to use to root out his critics, and what does he do to them? It's a real question. And this is where today's Republican Party has fallen flat, and they are as much to blame for Donald Trump's behavior in this moment because they haven't stopped it. They've actually gone along with it and elevated it and affirmed it.
And there's nothing in the new book that suggests they'll do anything different.
I mean, I think that you have to realize that this time the guardrails are gone. If you look at just the use of the military, Mark Esper, who was fired right after the election in 2020, Mark Esper had worked with Milley and with Bill Barr, Attorney General, to try to placate the president so he wouldn't call out the military.
Placate Stephen Miller, actually, right? The three of them are in the
absolutely,
Oval. Yeah.
And to keep this idea down of sending active duty, not the National Guard, active duty U.S. military personnel to the streets of Washington, D.C. In the wake of the George Floyd protests. Well, look, Esper was fired, and his rap sheet, which I include in here as well, his rap sheet was he tried to keep the Department of Defense apolitical. He tried to focus the department on Russia, and that he opposed the use of the Insurrection Act to deploy American troops against rioters. That's why he was fired. So there's no Esper in a second Trump term. I mean, maybe it's you invoked the name of Kash Patel, but it's going to be somebody who's going to do what Trump wants to do. I mean, that's
until they meet
goal.
Until they meet a Milley, right? I mean, it actually sets up an incredible clash because you can put whoever you want atop the department, but you can't strip the department of its rank and file.
Which raises such tough questions because you do have civilian leadership of the military, and look, our military officers, our military enlisted men and women are some of the most impressive people in the country that are driven by service to the country and swear an oath to the Constitution. But it gets really tricky when you're in a situation, are you defying orders of an elected commander-in-chief?
All right.